Hello, hello.
What's up, brother? How are you?
Great. What about you?
Chilling.
Are we live already?
I think so. Yeah, bro.
Damn. Hold on. Let me get ready real quick. Hold on. Just teasing you.
You good, bro? What are we doing?
I'm excellent. I'm ready to go. All right.
My bad. I was waiting on you, dude.
Oh, no.
Man? How are you?
Doing great. What about you?
Chilling, doing it. So I think we're going to have a conversation today about pre-qualifying because I think it's increasingly becoming more of a challenge for agents. It's the lead factor. It's kind of the lead measure that leads to the lag measure. I was sharing on a group coaching call that I actually had an agent say to me in the DMs, they were like, hey, nothing's selling on the listing side. So I think I just want to go work with buyers. I'm like, what, dude? Well, you know what you're really saying to me? I don't have the skills that are necessary in order to sell property in today's marketplace, right? And one of those fundamental skills is pre-qual, right? Because that's where everything kind of, if I don't do that right, it ends up, creating a bigger problem as time progresses because you end up with your inventory swelling and nothing moving, right? And motivation fixes price. They're not going to be willing to make adjustments, things of that nature. So, and I'm sure you're seeing that, on a day-to-day basis. Yes.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Somebody a long time ago asked me, they're like, well, right now, I mean, you're having a great year because obviously whoever controls the listings and everything's selling. He's like, when the market shifts, are you just going to shift to buyers at that point? And what I said to them, I was like, look, regardless of what the marketplace is doing, all the leverage is still on the listing side. And it's just going to require a different skill set, a different conversation that you need to have in order to be able to move your properties. And one of those skill sets is qualifying the leads to make sure that there's enough motivation. So what I was thinking about doing, Novello, I think we're able to share. I wanted to put the puzzle up there. I know we refer to it in different ways,
Sure.
but I think visually it helps people understand what they're qualifying for, basically. And we could call it whatever we call it. We could call it clearing the rooms or whatever. But I think visually, as we're guiding people as to how to qualify, I think visually it'll help them to be able to see that. Would it be okay if I do that?
Yes. Hey, I'll allow it.
I'm basically asking for your permission, bro.
I know that's what's happening.
Yeah, very, very politely.
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Do your thing.
All right, hold on one second. Okay, let me see if I can. Let me see. We've actually never shared something on here. Can you see this or no?
I have to add it to the stage. Hold on. Okay, so there it is. Now they can see it.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, so this is basically the things that you're going to be qualifying or this is the different rooms that you're going to be qualifying for. All right, it pops up. Good. Okay, good. So if you can see, one of the things that you're gonna be qualifying for or clearing the room is motivation. The other thing is timing. You're basically clearing the room or asking for timing. Pricing, loan information, not loan balance. I used to just think it was loan balance, but now I refer to it as loan information. Then there's, hey, what type of sale? Then there's creative solutions, which I basically, they're saying expand something. Let me see, slideshow, presenter's view, maybe. No, that's not it. Uh-oh.
I think I just did it. Go here, go back. I think I expanded it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They can see it better now for sure.
Okay, cool. Okay.
And I think as you go through this though, Jose, like, because I heard you say like, yeah, clear the room motivation, but I want to make sure everybody understands what that means. So
And that's what I was hoping that we'd go over. So,
yeah,
what I've realized is that whenever you're qualifying, there's 9 things that you can qualify on: motivation, timing, pricing, loan information, what type of sale, any creative solutions, what's the condition, who are the decision makers, and are you in competition with other agents? If you're able to figure out these things, it'll make it so that you're better prepared when you go on that appointment, and your chances of being able to convert that appointment increase tremendously. Now,
mhm,
whenever people come to either me or Aaron and they come to us with like not knowing what direction to take the lead in, or not knowing what to do with that lead, it usually means that they're missing a couple of pieces of this puzzle, or they haven't cleared a room completely, which means that they're missing information on one of these items. And if you're missing information on one of these items, that's where a lot of people are like, okay, like, is this a good lead? Is this a bad lead? How do I handle this lead? So, what Aaron and I will be doing today is we'll be helping you, okay, how to clear the room on each one of the items, meaning what are the key questions to ask around motivation, timing, pricing, loan information, type of balance, and then we'll connect them, because if you look at the puzzle, they're all connected to each other, meaning like they all intercorrelate, like meaning like the pricing connects with the condition. The pricing connects with their motivation. The pricing connects with the timing as well too. So a lot of these things are interconnected with each other. But once you put it together, if you look at the background of this, you're able to see the full picture. If you take out any of these pieces, you can't see the full picture.
yeah, I agree with that. So this idea, and we can go through it systematically, of clearing the room. What we mean by that is it comes from an analogy that I got from Heath, who was in the SWAT team. And, in SWAT, they're trained to clear rooms. So when they break down a door, they go in, together as a team, and they break off and they each have a responsibility to clear a room. So they'll go into a room, they'll look around looking for bad guys and be like, okay, clear. And then they'll go to the next room, so on and so forth. And that's the analogy that we're working with when we say clear the room. What we mean is we want to know, we want to ask surgical questions around motivation. So where we're crystal clear on what their motivation is, and then we move on right to the next room and so on and so forth.
Now, just so people understand, I usually clear the room or collect the information from left to right. So I usually start off with the motivation, then I go into the timing, then I go into the pricing, then I go into the loan balance. The only time I kind of don't follow that structure are in a couple different scenarios. One, they're talking to me about the condition, and obviously, like, I I go from left to right a lot of the times. I'm gonna go with the flow of that conversation. So I'm not gonna stop them telling me about the condition. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna finish off that conversation because they're already talking about it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's easier to ride the wave than to go against the current, and it makes the conversation. It's almost like if Aaron's talking to me about like something and I interrupt them, I'm like, hey, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this, and I just keep interrupting them, it actually disrupts the flow. So that's one of the instances where I won't go with motivation, timing, pricing when they're talking about something already, or if they've already given me that information. I like if they've already given me the timing and I'm pretty clear on that, I may just go from motivation to pricing at that
Yeah.
point, basically.
And because you know this mental framework so well, if they start talking to you about condition, in your mind, you're like, okay, I'm in the bottom left-hand quadrant. We'll talk about it. I'll clear that room, but then I'll go back up to motivation and
I'll go back out. I'll go
yeah,
back up to motivation, basically. And what I notice is a lot of people, when they start qualifying, if somebody's talking about the condition, they'll want to go up to the motivation when it's like, hey, this is one of the pieces, or this is one of the rooms that you're going to have to clear. So since you're going to have to clear it, let's just talk about it right now. And it makes the conversation even a little bit more pleasant as well, too.
yeah.
Now, in some cases, this is the second instance where I will jump around. Let's say I'm digging for the motivation and I'm noticing a little bit of pushback. I can continue pushing on the motivation, or I can move on to the timing, knowing that there's a couple of pieces on the motivation that I need to collect still, but to remove some pressure from that conversation, or if I notice that it's getting a little tense, I may move on knowing that I left that door still a little bit open and I still need to go back and close it
Yeah.
fully.
So here's what's really interesting about what we're doing right now, Jose. So I was on a call with Mondo, who's the AI specialist that's coming to the Do More Deal Summit. You can see if you haven't gotten your tickets, it's on your screen. Use the QR code. He's coming, and what we're going to be demonstrating to agents is going to be wild, mind blowing. But essentially, what you're doing, you have this app running in your mind. So when you talk to somebody, whether it's outbound or inbound, this app pops up. And then you're like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to move through, from left to right, and I'm going to ask all these questions, and that's going to give me all this data. And then there's like this other app that pops up. And the other app that pops up is based on that data, which solution would serve them best. What's so cool about this, because we're programming AI, we're building a product for agents. And in order to do that, though, we have to essentially teach it the apps that are in our mind. So when that inbound, call comes in, like let's say you have an AI assistant, and this is a little bit of digression, but it's not. It's in the same vein. And the AI assistant will pick up the phone and be like, hey, this is Susie from the Morales Group. How can I help you? And they're like, hey, my name's Tim. Hey, Tim, how are you? Doing great. How can we serve you today? And it's like, or if we get disconnected, what's a good number for me to call you back? They're like, it's this. Okay, good. How can we help? Well, I'm interested in talking to Jose about putting my home on the market for sale. Okay, great. Sounds like you want to speak to our sales department. Let me transfer you real quick. And they'll transfer him, and another AI will answer. Hey, this is like John from Jose's team. It sounds like Susie let me know that you wanted to put your home on the market for sale. Is that correct? Yeah, that's right. Great. Well, I just have a couple of questions to ask you just to make sure that Jose is fully prepared and can provide you with the most accurate information, be the best assistance, and he'll be brief because I know his time is valuable, and essentially run this app. Yes? Mm-hmm. But you have to go through and tediously tell the AI, kind of teach it how to run this app, right? And all these different scenarios that you're saying and all this other stuff, right? So that's just fascinating to me. It jumped out at me as we were having this conversation. Like that's really what's going on. You're running this app in your mind when people would reach out. And because you know it so well, you can bounce around it. Like if they're pushing back on motivation, you're like, okay, cool. I know I'm going to come back to it though. Great. We're going to go to timing. And I'll ask some questions around timing and then try to circle back, right? And then if they're still a little resistant, okay, cool. And we'll talk about price, whatever, I could circle back. Or if they want to talk about price first, we can go back to motivation. So for all of you guys that are watching this, you need to have this kind of dialed in. You need to understand it. You need to understand mentally. Like if you close your eyes, like understanding the puzzle, understanding this concept of clearing the room by room. So when people reach out, you can do it every single time without exception, because it's what determines in a marketplace where, 70, 80% of people have interest rates less than 6%. It's what, and when transaction volume drops by 40, 50%, and, the absorption rate is really low. Turnover is the lowest it's been in 30 years since mid 1990s. 27 out of every 1,000 homes are selling. If you don't get really good at this, then what ends up happening is you'll work with unmotivated, unqualified people. Your inventory will swell and stuff won't sell. Like that's what will happen. So I think it would be helpful, like just to give some, we can't go through like everything in full detail because we don't have enough time, but maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 questions for each piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
Right.
And then what pops up for me too, Novello, is like when you go to the doctor is asking you different questions. And then based on those questions, they're able to diagnose what the right solution is as well too for you. This is all this is. Like, so if you ask questions around these things, the next thing that I think about is like a equals mark, and then they're like, okay, most probable going to be a listing. Most probable is going to be a cash offer. Most probable is going to be a creative finance. Most probable is going to be um a novation or whatever it may be. But based on this, now it's like, okay, what avatar is likely? It's funny because um yeah, I thought about like a example with ChatGPT since we're talking about a little bit about AI. I heard this story at Collective Genius where there was a gentleman who went to our friend Phil Green and was telling him like that he wasn't feeling good, that he was having certain symptoms. Phil typed in all of the symptoms into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT almost like diagnosed him, bro, and told him you need to go see this type of doctor and um get this type of exam. I did the same thing for a client yesterday where she's like, my husband is this, they think it's this, but it's not this. And we're so lost. I typed in all the systems, bro. And what came up was like, hey, look, only 1 in 500 people get this. Or there's only 500 known cases in the world. But based on what you're telling me, there's a very high probability that it's this. And I was just like, damn. So what happens is when you learn how to ask these questions, you're going to realize like the probability of them being cash or the probability of them being a listing or whatever it may be. And then you're able to have a better conversation with them because you know what direction you're going in more than likely.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's right. So let's look at this. So let's say somebody calls up and they're like, "Hey, I'm thinking about putting my home on the market," or it's an outbound call and you booked an appointment. Great, it's time to pre-qual.
Yeah. Hey,
So
before we
you
get
know,
together, there's a number
yeah,
of questions I need to ask you.
yep. And I'll be brief because I know your time is valuable. Not like, is this a good time? Because if you say, is this a good time, they're gonna be like, no, and then you're gonna have to chase them down. So I'll be brief
Mhm.
because I know your time is valuable. And then we start to clear these rooms room by room. So let's say motivation. Here's a couple questions you could ask around motivation. So, my job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. I guess I'm curious. I'm sure your home is lovely. It's in a great area. Hopefully, I'm not being too straightforward. Was there any particular reason you were even considering selling it? I need to know motivation, right? Is it an option for you to not sell the home and still move? Is it an option for you to rent the home and still move? I've only spoken to you. You seem to be excited about making this move happen. Is there anybody else on title, any decision makers, any business partners? And if so, how do they feel about it? So those are examples of questions that you can ask around motivation, right? And if you ask them, then you're clear and you don't want to move on from it unless you're getting like fierce pushback until you are crystal clear on why they're selling. It always is wild to me, Jose. Like, we'll be on calls and people come to us with like these situations. I'm like, okay, well, what's the motivation? And they're like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Or it's this. I'm like, okay, is it an option for them to not sell and still move? They're like, I don't know. Is it an option for them to rent a home and still move? They're like, I don't know.
Well, I think the other thing, and this is where people get it wrong, whenever I was being trained, I was told to follow the script verbatim. And what the question was, when you sell it, where are you moving to next? But the problem with that versus this puzzle or this clearing the room idea is all that question really is you're asking for the motivation. So what happens if it's a rental? If it's a rental, are you going to say, hey, when you sell it, where are you moving to next? No. You're going to say something along the lines like, hey, look, after you sell it, is the plan to reinvest the money into another property, or are you simply looking to cash out? If it's a divorce, you're going to ask some questions around the divorce as well too. Hey, how are you guys has the judge ordered for the sale of the property to be sold? What does the court order say as to how you guys are determining the real estate agent? Is your other spouse on the same page about selling the property? Buyout options. If it's a probate, it's going to be different questions. But the when you sell it, where are you moving to next? All that question is really asking when you're looking at it is the motivation.
That's right.
Now, there's even more advanced questions on how to ask the motivation. Like, so for example, if you ask for the motivation and they're like, hey, really, that's not important in some cases. So, like, in some cases, you might get a little pushback. Like, hey, Aaron, when you sell it, where are you moving to next? I don't think it matters. Okay, not a problem. Just out of curiosity, like, if you do sell it, is the plan to kind of stay here locally, or are you thinking about moving out of the area? No, we're going to be moving out of the area. Good for you, man. Congratulations. Like, when you say out of the area, are we talking about, like, outside of Ventura County or outside of California? No, outside of California. Oh my god, I got so many clients that are moving out of California right now. If it's not too personal, you mind me asking, like, which states are you considering? "Oh, I'm considering Texas and Arizona." Oh my god, that seems to be the most popular states right now for Californians. If it's not too personal, you mind me asking, like, what is important about moving out to either Arizona or even Texas? "Well, I got family out there." Okay, great. Is it an option for you maybe not to sell the property and still make the move out there? Is it an option for you maybe to rent it out and still make the move? So those are all different ways around asking for motivation, and you wanna get surgical around that. So
Yep.
then we move on to timing.
Yeah, and then in timing, some questions
Wait,
that
wait,
you
w
could get.
sorry, one more thing. If it's a cash lead, you can ask it this way. So if it's a cash lead, you could say, "Hey, look, assuming you like my cash offer, is my offer going to be contingent upon you purchasing anything else? Or is it not contingent and you've already got that part taken care of?" "No, we're not contingent upon purchasing anything else."
That's right.
Great. But those are different. Good. Now, timing.
Yeah. So, and then we progress to timing. So, timing would sound something like, ideally, in terms of what you want, because that's what's most important. How soon would you like for me to have your home on the market for sale? Right. If I was able to help you sell this home in the next 30, 45, 60 days, would that create a problem for you or would that be okay? Right. So, you want to gauge because so many agents go on appointments where they don't ask these questions and they don't realize that these people are 8 months out, 10 months out, 12 months out. They get all their hopes up. They go on the appointment. They get all excited and like, hey, thanks for coming out. And you're like, okay. And you just hope and wish and pray that like maybe they call you back or maybe they decide to sell and you play this follow up game over time. And the chances of you listing that property are very, very small.
Yeah. And if you wanna do, like, a low pressure, like, timing question, "Hey, just out of curiosity, like, what's an ideal time frame for you to sell this property? Is it, like, a
Mhm.
month? Is it 6 months? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 100 years?"
Mhm.
That's a very low pressure way of asking for timing, and it also, like, is kinda funny, like, 100 years? "Ha ha, Jose, no, it's not 100 years. Nah, we're thinking, like, in the next 2 months." Or you can even say, "Hey, look, just out of curiosity, is there an ideal time frame for you to sell this property, or just the sooner the better?"
Yeah. And when they say
And
like,
at that
oh,
point, you're
like,
guiding them. Yeah,
that's right. You're guiding them. And then if they say like, well, we're thinking like 2 months. Okay. And then just so I'm clear, were you thinking of being on the market in 2 months?
getting
Or were you
clarification.
thinking about being done and complete, sold and closed, escrow done, and you have a check in your hand in 2 months? Like
Now
which would be your preference?
Now, if they say something like, "Hey, look, we're thinking about being sold in 6 months," and they're like, or, "We're wanting to be on the market in 6 months," this is kinda where you can kinda sprinkle in a little bit of coming soon campaign to see if that's something that they would consider now prior to them putting on the home on the market in 6 months. So you're almost
That's
like sprinkling this idea to be like, "Hey, look, this is a benefit to you. Is this something that you would consider?" I've already signed up 2 listings for January,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that aren't coming on the market till January.
That's right. So either you could definitely do the pre-listing thing. That's one strategy you can utilize. And then there's another one where you could say something like, well, let's say that we knew that through no fault of your own or mine, that if you made a decision to wait, it could end up affecting ultimately how much you end up getting, just due to market dynamics and supply and demand in the fourth quarter. Do you think you'd be more inclined to wait or would you be open to moving your timeline up? And then be
Yeah.
quiet, right? So you see like within I think people just imagine it's like, you ask some of those timing questions, that's it. No, like it's getting surgical. So you're crystal clear on what this situation is, right?
And here's the problem with most people, Novella. Most people only know how to ask one question around timing.
Yeah,
And that one question is, how soon are you looking to sell this property?
that's
And
right.
that's it. They don't dig any deeper. They basically do it. So for a lot of our elite builders on some of these topics, we actually have PDFs for you guys where
Mhm.
on the motivation, it's like a 12-page document. It sounds crazy on all the different ways that you can ask for motivation, timing, pricing, loan balance, type of sale, and then we're working on creative finance condition, which is a combination of everything that Aaron and I teach basically for our elite builders.
That's right. And that's why they're doing more deals in a difficult marketplace and making more money. So now we can pivot
Wait,
to go ahead.
now let's say it's for cash. hey, assuming like let's say you like my cash offer and let's say I wanted to close escrow in like 10 days. Is that something that would be doable for you or is there an ideal time frame that would work out for you? No, we would need a minimum of 60 days. No, that 14-day timeline would work or no that I would actually want something sooner. That starts telling you a lot. Then we
That's
move
right.
on to pricing.
That's exactly right. And then we move on to pricing. So, and pricing, you want to be intentional and purposeful about how you ask it. We were both trained to ask it in a way that was very like abrasive, like, what price won't you go below? And people are automatically going to get defensive. So instead, you could say something like, my intention, of course, is to help you to maximize value and get top dollar. You strike me to be someone who's pretty savvy. I'm sure you've gone online, seen some of these sites that give estimates of value. So I'm curious, did you guys have an idea at all of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? And then be quiet. And they're usually going to say like one of two things. They're either going to tell you we were thinking X, or they might be like, well, we're waiting to hear what you want to say. Now, most agents, to Jose's point, they're like, okay, and they move on. No, no, no. We're just going to ask it in a different way. You'd be like, yeah, my intention in asking, just so you know, it's certainly not to be nosy in any way. It's really just to gauge your expectation. It's definitely not going to influence what the marketplace is showing us as reasonable and realistic. Sometimes, I'm not suggesting this is true for you, but just in general, homeowners' expectations aren't in alignment with current market conditions. So I'm just, trying to gauge to see where you're at with that. And I'm looking here at one of these sites to give estimates of value, and it's telling me somewhere around 750. Is that in alignment with what you were thinking? And to be quiet. And you're either going to say, no way, that's way too low. And you're like, okay. And then you can follow up. Okay. So then, were you thinking like 850? And so I'm pulling out the information, even though they initially kind of push back, or they're going to be like, yeah, that's somewhere around there. Okay, cool. So you're just circling back and asking it in a different way.
And then the other thing that you want to pay attention to on pricing is in certain scenarios, you're going to ask it a different way. So, like, for example, let's say that it was an expired. You may ask it in a way where, like, hey, look, when you were on the market, did you have anybody make you any offers in writing? Yeah, I had an offer at 750. Okay, if you don't mind me asking, how did you respond back? Well, we countered back at 725. Okay, if you had that offer all over again, would you respond in the same manner? No,
Mhm.
I should have taken the offer at 700. Okay, great. That paints a picture now of what they're willing to take.
That's right.
So it's like it's in different situations. So, for example, if it's a probate and they're like, "Well, we had an appraisal done on the property." If they're telling you they had an appraisal, guys, like, you would wanna ask, like, "Okay, if it's not too personal, you mind me asking what that appraisal came in at?" "Well, that appraisal came in at 800,000." "Okay, and what are your thoughts on that number?" "Well, personally, I actually think it's too high. I think
Hmm.
that they're too high on the price." "Okay, if it's not too personal, you mind me asking, like, obviously you think it's too high. What do you think would be a more realistic number?" Where I'm thinking like 750. If it's if they're like, "Well, we had a lowball offer." And this Wednesday, somebody said, "Hey, we had a lowball offer on the property." And they just skipped right over that. Like, didn't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So, if somebody says, "Hey, I had a lowball offer." Hey, if it's not too personal, like, you mind me asking, like, when you say lowball, like, what did that come in at? Well, it came in at 500. Okay. And in your eyes, what would be a more realistic offer? Where in my eyes, it would be like 600. Okay, great. Now it starts to give you an idea. You could ask it a different way. You could even ask it like, "Hey, look, when I see you, how much do you want to list the home for?" Now, in some cases, you could even frame it in this way. So sometimes people aren't going to want to share this with you because they think that if they share this with you, that you're going to use that against them in one way or another. So I may ask it in this way to increase the probability of them giving me that answer. So I may say something along the lines um, like, "Hey, Aaron, this is the way that we work. We're very direct. We're very straight to the point. Obviously, like, I never want to waste anybody's time. With that being said, realistically, how much were you wanting to sell the property for?"
Yep.
Now, I'm pre-phrasing it like almost like, "Hey, look, this is the way that we are. We're very direct. We're very straightforward. We don't hold back on anything." Like, and a lot of times we expect for our consumers to be the same way. With that being said, how much were you looking to sell the property for? And it's almost like they're like, they don't want to be not direct. They don't want to be not straightforward. So there's like this internal conflict going on at that time, but you'll notice that when you pre-phrase it in that manner, and then if they give you pushback, well, we want to hear what you have to say. Well, look, here's the reason I'm asking. Like, once again, we're very direct, we're very straight to the point. Like, we've had situations where somebody tells us, hey, we don't want to share this with you. We show up to the house and they're like, we want $10 million for the property. And honestly, like, I could be more direct over the phone and tell you straight up, like, hey, look, we're not going to be anywhere near that. With that being said, Novello, I'm not looking for an exact number. Could you at least give me a range of what your expectations are?
That's right.
Well, we're looking somewhere around 1.3. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
That's right. And it's having the courage though to push back that
To
way.
push back. This is one of those, a lot of times when people are like, "Hey, is this a cash lead or is this a listing?" I'm like, "How much do they want for price?" They're like, "I don't know. They told me that they want to hear my offer." I'm just like, "No, you when they told you that, you didn't push back. And because you're missing that piece of the puzzle, that's a really big piece. You have no idea how to take you have no idea what it's going to be."
Agreed.
So then we move on, not loan balance. On here it says loan balance. Now I've realized it's actually loan information. And inside the loan information is a loan balance. But there's
Yeah,
other things that you may want to know about the loan.
and there's two ways to go about this. So I'll approach the retail, and then you can handle kind of like on the creative side, other things you want to know about the loan. But on the retail side, you'd say something like, "Hey, I'm going to be preparing for you a net sheet so I can show you dollars and cents what the proceeds would be. And in order to do that properly and professionally, I just need like a roundabout, right? Do you know if there's any liens or encumbrances or mortgages? Is there anything still owed on the property?" And then be quiet. And they'll be like, "Yeah, we owe like this amount." Okay, great. I got the information. Now, if they push back again, well, why is that important? Well, again, my intention in asking isn't to be nosy. My intention instead is to gather as much information as I can so I can give you a clear picture of equity. For most homeowners, that's very important to them when they're making the decision about the move and how much they're going to be able to take to their next destination. And in order to do that properly and professionally, I just kind of need a roundabout. So you do know roughly how much is still owed on the property. Again, a willingness to push back, right? Where most agents are just like, okay, and they leave it alone, right? Now, that's only one piece of information. So share with them what other types of information they could gather as far as a loan is concerned.
So the way we were taught is just like, hey, how much do you owe on the property? And people would get defensive when you would ask it that way. So
Yeah.
then we switched that to, hey, look, here's what I want to do next for you. What I want to do next for you is I want to prepare what I call a seller net sheet. The seller net sheet is going to let you know net bottom line, what you can expect to receive at closing after any closing cost or realtor fees. Is there still a balance on the property or is the property paid off free and clear? And a lot of times they'll be like, oh yeah, it's somewhere around 300,000. Fantastic. That's one way of asking it right there. Now, what I realized by saying loan information is that, hey, like, and you can look this up on the tax record, so you may not even need to ask it. Hey, by any chance, do you have an FHA or a VA loan? Hey, by any chance, like, would if it's not too personal, you mind me asking, like what type of interest rate do you have on the property? If you don't mind me asking, like, what is your payment? What is your principal and interest on the property? Now, this is important a lot of times. Like, even what is your mortgage payment on the home? It's important in some cases when they're selling and buying because, like, a lot of times when they're selling and buying, people don't realize that with today's rate, if they have a 2% mortgage, like I've had people like, hey, yeah, Jose, I want to sell my house. Like, fantastic. Congratulations. I'm like, where are you moving? So they're like, I want to buy a property. And then we get to the loan information. I'm like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what type of interest rate do you have? 2.5. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm like, okay, what's the loan balance? They're like, oh, like 600,000. And I'm like, okay, if you don't mind me asking, what's your monthly payment? And then I may take it a step deeper and say, hey, um, you know that your payment's gonna go up, right, on the new property? And they're like, "Yeah, we kinda figured." I'm like, "Do you know what it's gonna go up to?" And they're
Mm-hmm.
like "No." I'm like, "Okay, well, let me ask you this, what price are you gonna be purchasing at on the next one?" They're like, "Well, we wanna purchase at 1,000,000." Okay, and then are you gonna put all the proceeds from this one to the next one? They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "How much equity do you think you have?" They're like, "Well, we think we have 500." I'm like, "You realize that your next payment's gonna be around 7,500?" They're like, "Oh, no. Yeah, that would never work for us." I'm like, "What would be an ideal mortgage payment?" They're like, "Well, we were thinking we're at 4. We were thinking somewhere around 6,000." I'm like, "Well, in order to be at 6,000 instead of 1,000,000, you'd have to purchase around 800,000. Would that be doable for you?" And they're like, "No, it would not be doable." Okay.
And look how much time Jose saved by being
Instead of
surgical with
instead of going
questions,
out
bro.
there.
Instead of go seeing them, talking about it, going to show them all that stuff, and then coming to that conclusion later on.
Yeah, and then at that point, now I'm like, okay, like I can pitch a different solution. I'm like, well, look, have you ever heard of an assumable loan? Like, no, what is that? Well, an assumable loan is where you can take over somebody's mortgage payment as long as you come up with the difference. I'm like, they don't come up very often, and you're somewhat restricted as to what types of properties you can buy. But if you're serious about making this move, that might be an option for you. Is that something that you would be open to? Well, we'd like to know how it works. Okay, great. So let's cancel our meeting for now. Let me send you a video as to how it works. And then you tell me if it's something that you would entertain, basically. Like, oh my God, I didn't know that. Now I'm like, okay, there's an additional option, but I'm saving a lot of time by asking questions about the loan information. Not only that, but like I went on an appointment where the guy owes 790 on the property and the property's worth like 820, which means if he sells, he ain't making any money.
Mm-mm.
But then when we got to the creative solution part, that's where I kind of sprinkled in, hey, would you ever allow somebody to take over your mortgage payment? Because he had a 2 point something interest rate. Hey, would you ever consider a short sale? Hey, would you ever consider, but knowing the loan information actually allows you to know whether there's something there or not.
Agreed, 100%. So it's loan information, not just loan balance, and that opens up all these other conversations. And we've given you multiple ways
Of
of
asking
asking
for,
that, and then we
and
move
for
on.
cash, it's the same way. For cash, it's the same way. Hey, I'm going to prepare a net sheet for you. This is going to let you know net bottom line, what's going to be left in your pocket after any fees. Is there still a balance on the property, or is the property paid off free and clear?
Yeah, perfect. And then we can move on. I don't know if we'll have time to go through all of them, but we'll move on. Maybe we'll do that next week. But we'll move on to the type of sale. So one of the questions that you can ask is like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, is your preference to sell this on the open market, or are you more interested in an off-market transaction? And then be quiet. And they'll tell you. They'll be like, no, I was just thinking like retail or whatever. They may ask you some questions, and then you can kind of take it from there. And to what Jose was saying too, in terms of a type of sale, it kind of bleeds into the creative financing. So it's like, let's say you ask these questions and you get the loan balance or whatever. And what he just said to that client, it's like, hey, I'm curious if there was a way that you could sell this home and allow somebody to take over your mortgage payment. Is that something you would be open to? Because that leads to the type of transaction. It's like a sub 2 transaction. So just asking these questions will bring to the surface
And then
what this
and then
probably is, right?
and then even questions like, let's say it's a cash offer lead, you might be like, "Hey, like, just out of curiosity, like, what's important about selling for cash as opposed to going the traditional route and just listing it with a real estate agent?"
There you go.
Like, "Hey, what's important about that?" "Well, to be honest, like, I'm really sick and I don't wanna, or I have dogs, or I don't wanna cause this inconvenience," basically.
Yeah.
And then this is the piece of the puzzle where you would actually somewhat transition them into a listing if their pricing is more retail. Or you may ask additional questions about that. Be like, "Hey, look, like, let me ask you this, like what if you knew that in order to get your price, you'd have to put it on the open market and that the cash offer wouldn't work out? Is that something that you would be open to?"
That's right.
So
And that
there's
again, and I hope everybody's seeing here as you're going down the path, because this is cumulative, right? I'm gathering all of this data. We've got all the data from the motivation piece of the puzzle, all the data from timing, all the data from pricing, all the data for loan information, all the data for the type of sale. And then what starts to happen before we even get to creative condition deal makers, decision makers, and agents, what starts to happen is I know that as we're progressing through this, I'm like 80% sure I already know what this is.
and in some cases, just so you know, from the loan balance, before I get into the type of sale, I may skip to the condition.
Yeah.
Now, here's the reason why. Like, if they tell me like a price below market value and they want a cash offer, a lot of it depends on the condition. So before I even transition them to a listing, I may say, "Hey, what's the condition of the property?" "Oh, it's fully remodeled. We've got about 300,000 into the property." I'm like, "Oh, man, that's phenomenal. It may make sense for a cash deal." Or if they're like, "No, it's a fixture, man. You're gonna need about 300,000." Now it may not work out. And in some cases, you may not be able to transition them into a listing in that moment because you may need to do your comps first and figure out like, hey, look, is there a deal here or not? And then you may have to call them back. And after you do your homework and say, hey, look, like it doesn't look like it's going to work out on a cash basis. Like, are you open to putting it on the open market?
That's right.
So then you get into the creative. So I thought it was creative financing. It's not creative finance. I think, and this is the next one that we're doing, is called creative solutions.
Yeah, I think that's a better way of saying it, because I think when we think financing, we think kind of
Loan.
loan, we think math, we think when it's no, it's just a solution to a problem. So by
Creative
going through,
solutions.
yeah, creative solution to a problem. So as we go through and we clear the room by room, and we go through the pieces of the puzzle, this picture emerges. And if it's not like a traditional retail sale, then it may require and more likely than not requires a creative solution. So then
And
there, we
Mhm.
have to have product knowledge of what those creative solutions are, so we can know in our mind which one with a high degree of probability would serve the client best.
yeah. Yeah. So even as it relates to I forgot about that. Okay. So the creative solution part. So the creative solution has things in there like, and this is where a little bit of investor, the type of sale that I was trying to remember, how we were taught this was just, have you ever thought about selling the property yourself?
Yep.
That's how we were
That was
taught.
the only question we would ask.
That was the only question. But when I looked at that, I'm like, they're not really asking like, "Hey, are you going for sale by owner?" They're really asking just, "Hey, have you thought about what other options for selling the property are you exploring?
Hey, what
Are
other
you
solutions?
what other solutions?" Now, for the creative solutions part, this is where different things come into play. And you've got to know a little bit more. Like, so for example, how many of you guys know what a short sale is? Let me say that if you've been in the business for less than 5 years, you probably don't know what a short sale is.
Or you've never facilitated one. Yeah.
You've never facilitated one. But when I got into the business in 2010, there was a lot of short sales. When Aaron got into the business, there was a lot of short sales and a lot of REOs. Hey, guess what? There's some in the marketplace now. I don't know if
Oh,
you've
yeah,
noticed
and I think
this.
they're gonna be more prevalent as time progresses.
Yeah, especially people who bought after 2022.
Yep.
A short sale may be a valid option. Somebody who has a reverse mortgage where they owe more than what the property is worth, a short sale may be a valid option. Now, hey, what if they don't have an assumable loan, like a VA or an FHA? A subject to might be a valid option. A assumable loan might be a valid option. A seller financing. So creative solutions includes seller financing. It includes like wraparound mortgages. It includes contracts for deeds, which is just another way of saying seller financing. But it's like, hey, a question like, let's say that they're like, hey, I want this really high price. It's like, hey, would you ever consider a creative solution? Well, what do you mean? Well, would you ever consider allowing somebody to take over your payments? Like, well, what do you mean? Hey, it sounds like you don't have any equity in the property. Would you ever consider a short sale? Well,
What's that?
I don't even know what it is. Well, a
Yeah.
short sale is where you sell the property for less than what you owe to the bank. And the bank actually allows you to do this because oftentimes they don't want to take the property back. Like, oh man, you know? So a good way to ask these is, would you ever consider this?
Yeah,
Would
and
you
in
ever
order to be
consider
able
that?
to ask those questions, though, I have to know what solutions are available.
100%.
So that's a separate, like, kind of app that I need to run, and separate specialized knowledge I need to acquire. So the first specialized knowledge is knowing what to say and how to say it. The second is, once you gather all this data, real in-depth knowledge of the different solutions, so that way I can, offer them.
Yeah, and then the other thing, notice how creative solutions, you've already collected the motivation, you've already collected the time, you've already collected the pricing, you've already collected the loan balance. in combination with the loan balance and the pricing and in sometimes condition, you already know, hey, it's not going to work out for this.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I got a lead from one of my agents like, hey, dude, they owe more than what it's worth. He's never seen a short sale. I call her up. I get a hold of her. I'm like, hey, would you ever consider a short sale, bro? She's like, yeah, I would. That would actually be great. We're going to be short selling her property.
Hmm.
So I was able to monetize that because I knew the product knowledge. Then
Yeah.
for the condition, bro, it's not condition. It's property details.
Yeah. It's good.
And inside the property details is the condition of the home. So this is where you want to get clarification on square footage. This is where you want to get clarification on bedrooms and bathrooms. If it's a multifamily, like 2 or 3 units, hey, how many bedrooms and bathrooms is each unit? Or how are utilities set up? Does it have separate gas, electric, and water? Hey, what's the condition of the property? So this is where you would start asking questions around property details, bedrooms, bathrooms, condition of each unit, setup, detached, attached, that sort of thing.
Yep. I
How
love
many
that,
beds?
dude.
How many baths?
100%. And then we move on to decision makers. I guess we can run through it quickly. Decision makers is like, hey, I've only spoken to you. You seem to be really excited about, this sale or this move. Is there any other decision makers or anybody else on title to the property? And then be quiet. Or if you have it up in front of you, the tax is like, yeah, I've only spoken to you. It looks like, Mariella's on title to the property as well. If you don't mind me asking, I can hear in your voice that you're super excited about moving. How does she feel about it? And then, when we do connect tomorrow at 6, I make it a business practice to really meet with, all decision makers. So that way we're all there at the same time. I can share that information. I can answer any questions you both have. So if we were to connect under normal conditions, would you and Mariela be available in the evenings or the afternoons? Making sure that all decision makers are present.
And then even for unique situations, like let's say it's an inherited property. I was talking to this lead yesterday. I said, hey, are you the trustee? And he goes, no, my brother and sister are.
Mhm.
So I'm like, dude, I'm not even talking to the right
Right
decision.
person.
My
Yeah.
odds of being able to convert this lead by not talking to the actual decision makers are very low.
Yeah, and that's where you'd have to be like straightforward, be like, hey, listen, I appreciate the opportunity. What I'm aware of is through no fault of your own or mine, being that you're not a trustee. The trustees are the ones that have full authority to make decisions as far as the real property is concerned. So if you're open to it, the only way that I'd really be able to facilitate and help is if you'd be kind enough to share with me their contact information so I can reach out and introduce myself, and then we could take it from there. And then be quiet, because otherwise you're just wasting time.
And then what you could even do, like, because sometimes people are hesitant about giving contact information, you can be strategic out of it. So you could say something like, "Hey, just out of curiosity, like, uh, what's your brother's first name? Just out of curiosity," and be like, "Oh, it's John." Okay, and John probably has the same last name as you, right? Okay, and does John live here locally or does he live out of the area? He lives in Idaho. Great. Would you be open to sharing his contact information? No, let me talk to him first. But guess what? With systems like Forewarn, I've already got everything I need.
Yeah, you can
I
find
already
them.
got, I can find him. So now I'm able to basically reach out to him directly. Or in yesterday's case, I asked him the question. He's like, look, I don't really feel comfortable sharing that. But he gave me enough information. So what did I do? I basically looked up the obituary and on the obituary, he said my brother and sister. And guess what? In the obituary, it had his brother
Name.
and sister's full name basically on there.
Look at Jose becoming an FBI agent, bro. I love that, dude. Let's go.
But because of that, now you're able to make sure that you're talking to the right decision maker. Now I want a divorce. Hey, look, how are you guys going about making this decision?
Yeah,
Has the
like if you don't mind me asking, like, is this amicable? Like, are you guys on speaking terms, or is it a situation where you're having to only speak to each other through attorneys? I guess I'm wondering, as far as the selection process of an agent is concerned, being that there's no decree. Well, if you don't mind me asking, is there a divorce like that says the property has to be sold? And being that, let's say there isn't one, how do you foresee this going about in terms of the selection process of an agent?
yeah, who's going to make the decision?
Yeah.
Hey, who lives at the property? You know? And
Mhm.
then, and sometimes a court order, there is a decree. Okay, and what does the decree say
Hey,
about how the agent's gonna be selected?
that's
Well,
right.
it says that my ex-wife is gonna be the one choosing the agent.
Okay.
Guess what?
And then I guess I'm curious because, I'm imagining, and I don't know if this is true or not. You'll be able to tell me that if you were to say to her, "Hey, I have an agent," she may not be open or receptive to that. So, like, how do you foresee going about me having a conversation with her and then be quiet? Right. So, but the point is, and the thing that I want everybody to see here, like, look at how surgical you need to be to know everything. And what people don't realize is they're like, man, you do all that up front. I'm like, yeah, because I'm doing all the heavy lifting up front, right? Ahead of time. And that makes the business way more effective and efficient. You don't waste time on unqualified appointments. You don't waste time speaking to people that aren't decision makers. You're crystal clear on motivation, timing, pricing. Like, they're doing business. And if what my mental map was is like, look, dude, if I'm going to spend time away from, my children, my wife, like other things I could be doing and people I'm doing it with, it's because we're doing business. Like, they're
Mm,
going to buy or sell, they're going to do something, whether or not it's with me or somebody else, but they're doing something.
well, not only that, but the only way, like, people look at you, Novello, like, when you sold 150 to 200 homes, and they're like, I'm selling 20 homes and I'm going bananas. Like, the only way you're able to do that is to be very surgical about how you're spending your time and who you're investing your time in. If you're
Mhm.
not doing this, like, here's what most agents do. They receive a phone call, "Hey, I want to sell my property." And they're like, "Okay, great. When can I come over? Tomorrow at 3. Okay, great. See you tomorrow at 3." But then you have none of this information. So you may show up and like, yeah, I want $10 million for my property. And you're like, dude, like, because they're so excited about going out and just meeting with somebody just for the sake of meeting with them and then posting on Instagram, like, hey, appointment time,
That's
like,
right.
you know? But okay, so now then we move on to agents. So the way I like to ask for agents is, hey, just out of curiosity, like, what are you looking for in whoever it is you end up selecting as your agent? Like, what
Yeah.
qualities are you looking for? Hey, I'm looking for somebody honest. I'm looking for somebody transparent. Great. And how are you going to know if somebody's honest, transparent? Hey, at this point, have you already decided that you want to just work with me, or are you going through an interview process and talking to other agents? No, Jose, you're the only guy we're talking to. No, we are talking to to other agents. Great. Do you already have those interviews set up?
That's right.
And if so, when are they? Oh, they're like literally like right after your interview on Monday at 3 o'clock. So like literally they're coming at 4 o'clock.
And then I would even
Okay.
dig even more. It's like, okay, and then I'm curious because some, you know, homeowners, they set up 3, and at the same time, they might be the type of person that when they see what they're looking for, they might just, cancel the others and just go ahead and hire them. So I guess I'm curious, are you committed to interviewing all 3? Or if you meet with somebody that you feel comfortable, confident they can get the job done, would look out for your best interest, would you save yourself, all that time and just go ahead and proceed?
And then you could even say, hey, look, like you mentioned to me that you're looking for somebody honest, straightforward, transparent. Let's say that when we meet, you obviously recognize that we're honest, we're straightforward, and we're direct. But most importantly, you know that we're going to be looking out for your best interest. Assuming we can demonstrate that to you, would you be open to the possibility of working together when we meet tomorrow at 5 p.m.? Absolutely, Jose. I would be open to it.
Mhm.
But notice how by you collecting all of this information, like, you're able to be better prepared for the appointment. And even, like, because it dictates your appointment. Like, let's say they're like, "Yeah, I have an appointment 30 minutes after you." Guess what that means, Jose? You better be extremely efficient in those 30 minutes. No, like, "Hey, look, like, let's chit chat for 30 minutes," you know? It's like,
Yeah.
"Alright, I got 30 minutes. I'm gonna make the best out of this 30 minutes." Or, hey, like, in some cases, you may need to move your appointment around to whatever it may be.
That's exactly right. So hopefully you guys are super clear now. Somebody mentioned in the comments, like, hey, this is so helpful for me because I'm a visual person. Our intention again, you've heard me say it once, you heard me say it a million times because 7 times said is once heard, is that most people teach mindset because they can't teach tactics. Mindset is important. Tactics are equally, if not more important. So we're all
So
about giving you the tactics that you need in this environment because this environment isn't changing anytime soon, guys. right? Interest rates are still double what they were 3 years ago. Transaction volume went from 6.5 million to 3.9 million. We had 3 years in a row of that. Um, the absorption rate is really low. Again, lowest it's been since 1995, where only 27 out of every 1,000 homes are selling. They're trying to create products to boost the market, which is 50-year mortgages, which you end up paying the bank double the amount of interest you would pay them, or portable mortgages. They're trying to do everything they possibly can to try to help out this real estate market. But I don't foresee any of that changing anytime soon. So if you do not learn this skill, okay, skills pay the bills, you will have a difficult time in this market.
But even if it doesn't, though, like, let's say the market gets better, it just means that you can go from 100 to 200 deals
That's right.
in the same amount of time
Yeah.
by being more efficient. So whether the market is this or the market is great, this is a skill that you need to learn. Now, this is what I did in my office. I literally took a screenshot of this and I have it to the right-hand side. So as I'm talking to leads, I'm like, okay, do I have the motivation? Do I have the timing? Do I have the pricing? Do I have the loan balance? I've seen people with a pre-qual script that's like 3 or 4 or 5 different pages. And I'm like, look, guys, like, this is really what you need to know. And this is really the questions that you need to ask around. Obviously, there's layers of the motivation, there's layers of the timing, there's layers of the pricing. But if you know that, I think that that'll basically help you be more efficient, basically.
That's exactly right. So if you want to learn more on how to do this, be sure to follow me. And then also get your tickets to the Do More Deal Summit, because we spend 2 or 3 days going over all this stuff in depth. You could see me and Jose present live, other fantastic people in the real estate space, all with the goal and objective of equipping you with what to say and how to say it, and what lead sources are working, and the tactical skills you need to get your unfair share of the business. We look forward to seeing you there. Let's go. Let's grow.
Later,
Peace.
guys. Bye. Gotta get out.